Hey folks, Phil Gallagher here for the second part of the Eldrazi League for the Backlog. We're playing against Malamujo. We have a little bit of a clunky hand that I'm going to keep. We have the possibility of a turn 1 Chalice, if that's going to be good in the matchup. So now I can turn 1 Chalice into turn 2 Ayavugan. I'm going to take a second to see if Malamujo has 5-0'd recently with anything in Polluted Delta with it. Now, those are the wrong words, but you probably knew what I meant. Maybe Delver. In which case, this isn't super likely to resolve, but it's still worth doing. So next turn I can either Thought-Knot Seer or double Matter Reshaper with things as they stand now. JK! So to play around a Wasteland, again, do I just want to play Ayavugan? I can only do 1 Matter Reshaper next turn if I do that. Whereas if I spike a Soul Land off the top, I can either Matter Reshaper or Eye. So accordingly, I am going to play out my Eye. Although it is awkward. I don't regret my decision. We do have lots of lands, and my opponent only has 4 cards. So after I draw my card, I'm going to have 5 cards to my opponent's 4, and I'm probably going to take out their land here. Although it may be correct to just, like, not wasteland them, and instead just play towards a bunch of uncounterable Eldrazi. This is more interesting than it looks, honestly. I don't know how many lands my opponent has. I don't know what threats they have. For like 100% sure. I think I'm going to go the uncounterable idiot route. That's certainly not a bad draw. So now I have a very good chump blocker, a decent removal spell, and 2 good threats on the horizon. Third Wasteland this game is pretty brutal, although that's great too. So now the real question is, do I just double Wasteland my opponent off both of those lands? I think the answer is still no. Is that loud enough that that's getting picked up? Yeah, I bet. One sec.
Can you bump it down just a smidge? Thank you.
Don't want too much weird audio going on in the background. Sorry about that. We're going to rename Eldrazi with that, and just play a Walking Ballista on 1. Now, instead of stopping my draw step, and we may potentially just remove that Young Pyromancer. Yeah, I don't hate just pinging that thing down. I also don't love it, though. Playing very conservatively with these Wastelands. I don't love that it gives my opponent a chance to find a Gurmag Angler, which is kind of a scary card. But given how big my hand is right now, I don't think I have too much of a choice. So we do have this Cavern, so this is a very fortuitous draw. Well, so I guess you can bounce that, discarding a Force of Will. Just take 3 this turn. Get a chance to find a Wasteland to knock me off of one of these 2, so I can't recast it. Shuffle with the Ponder. And we get a concession. Alright, so we're playing against Grixis Delver. Tumble Magnet's good against Gurmag Angler. Spatial Contortion removes everything. Ratchet Bomb is sweet against Young Pyromancer and friends. And something like Thorn or Shadow Spear is considerable as well. Although I don't know that we'll actually go there. I feel like our main deck is kind of fine, honestly. So I have 5 cards that I want to bring in. What do I want to board out? So the last time I played against Delver, I just kind of got stuck on mana and never had the possibility to cast the Endbringers. It was hard enough to even cast these this turn. So maybe at least when I'm on the draw, I'm going to go ahead and board these out. And then Matter Reshapers are kind of whatever. They're often my first go-to card to cut. So if we look at how my deck configuration has changed, now that I have Spatial Contortions, Ratchet Bombs, Tumble Magnets, and Dismembers, I'm probably going to be using my first couple of turns more often than not to either, like, Chalice, Mimic, or do something to answer my opponent's initial threat. So kind of the nature of my deck has changed a little bit, so I'm going to be a little bit less creature dense. I don't love this hand, but it has removal spell plus Jitte plus 2 early cards, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. But we haven't had the, like, super bonker broken Eldrazi hands most of the time here. That being said, I do just have the possibility of turn 2 Mimic or Endless One into turn 3 Jitte Equip. Swing. So this isn't the end of the world. And note, I value an Endless One more than just a 1/1. That doesn't eat it to the Ballista as a removal spell. That, however, is very good. I don't love what this does to my sequencing, though. So this prompts me to do this turn, which plays into Daze, Force of Will, or Force of Negation, which my opponent did not have, and I am thankful for that. Petty Theft. So for my next turn, I'll probably Chalice and Eldrazi Mimic uncounterably, instead of playing Thought. Never mind. That's kind of annoying. So Ratchet Bomb also answers this, but is slow. I don't care about this if I can resolve this Chalice. But that is a relatively big if. And my opponent having another Wasteland would be pretty brutal. Even just the Brazen Borrower is kind of bad for me. I can gun that down with Ballista. Ugh. Please no Ponder or Bolt in addition. So it may not look like I'm that far behind, but I under no circumstances expect to win this game now. My opponent has stopped the Chalice twice, and it made my mana incredibly awkward. I have this forthcoming Brazen Borrower to worry about. I have this thing to worry about. And my opponent hasn't used any counter magic yet. City of Traders also is going to disappear. If this resolves, it's big news. Alright. God, that other Wasteland is brutal. I do find it somewhat interesting that my opponent did not force and pitch a Brainstorm for this Thought Knot Seer. I'm going to now play an endless one for x equals 1, very sadly. The reason is because I have so many other things to do with my mana that are potentially better than this that I need to, like, at least try to use some of this efficiently. So my opponent did not know about that Fatal Push, right? Oh no, they had the Ponder last turn, I see. Alright, so that explains that line. Still fine with that Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt both being gone. Yikes. My opponent having threats at 3 different concurrent mana costs is also making this pretty awful. I think I still need to use it. Did not eat the Force of Will. We're just going to charge that up. So it's my goal to Ratchet Bomb away this Delver. Followed by using the Ballista to kill the Brazen Borrower. But I'm just taking so much damage while my opponent is cantripping. It's kind of been a foregone conclusion that I've lost this one for a few turns now. This is brutal. Yep. So now I blow this up. Opponent will flash in the Brazen Borrower. Try to let resolve. Then I have to dismember it. Can't do this the other way around and kill this because then the Brazen... Yikes. Alright. So I had a clunky hand to start with there. That's not overly surprising. So this is a hand that has mana, but no payoff. I'm not happy with this hand, but maybe I'm supposed to keep mana heavy hand versus Delver. How many decent-sized things do I have to draw into? One of these, so 4, 8, 9 big threats to draw into. This is just going to be like Mimic, Wasteland You, and Mimic, and then just be praying off the top. I'll try to get something a little more explosive. This is much better. I will keep this. So this hand goes Mimic into Endless One for 3 into Smasher on curve. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the Spatial Contortion and try to win via aggression. There's also worlds where I will just play City of Traders this turn instead of exposing the Cavernous Soul, but I don't think now that I've drawn this. See if there's a Fatal Push from the other side of the battlefield. No Fatal Push. So if we don't get Wastelanded, we are very likely to just run our opponent over with 13 damage coming in this turn. Yeah. This is still fine, but of little overall consequence now. Send them in. And fine with not holding one of these back. Like, opponent is probably not blocking there anyway. So now opponent could attack in Brainstorm again, but what are they hoping to draw into? This is the sort of start that we've lacked in the last couple of games. And maybe some of my decisions, my mulligan decisions, haven't been the best. I haven't played a lot of Eldrazi, regular Eldrazi, since the London mulligan came about. And maybe I'm not mulliganing aggressively enough. Okay, so just confirm. If my opponent blocks both Reality Smashers, I still have lethal damage. Yeah, more games like that, please. So far in this league, my mana has been constrained a lot, either due to opposing wastelands or due to me stumbling. So in this league, my Endbringers, my Jittes, and my Ballista, my mana sinks haven't necessarily seemed good. I have not activated an Eye of Lucan yet. Potentially playing against D&T here. I'm just going to mulligan this hand, like, basically no matter what my opponent is playing. I don't do anything. Yikes. So as a 6-card hand, I play Chalice on turn 1. If my opponent is playing D&T, that's a very poor start. I'm going to ship this. Turn 1 Mimic. Yeah, alright. Turn 1 Mimic, turn 2 Thought Knot, turn 3 Thought Knot. We'll bottom 2 lands. Hope we don't get wastelanded. I think the path to victory here is don't get wastelanded. I know that's not a great strategy when I suspect that my opponent might be on D&T, but the explosiveness of my hand is what can give me a victory here. Oh, please play like a Stoneforge or a Thalia or something. Don't waste me. Don't waste me. I would have wasted too. Play the Tomb out this turn and pass. This still gives me the possibility of Thought Knotting. God, why? Okay, that's great for me. That is legitimately great for me. My opponent's going to get the Batter Skull, and I'll get to strip that from their hand. So I have to take this Batter Skull. However, the Recruiter that my opponent has is also pretty darn good. And if my opponent misses a land drop, they're just going to port down my City of Traders. Which is awkward for me, too. That's interesting. I think that's worth doing. The next question, though, is, do I want to get aggressive? Because I could play Ancient Tomb or Mimic and then junk this Rashadan Port. But I think I want to force my opponent to do this, otherwise I get Thought Nuts here. I'm going to go ahead and take my attack. I will take 2 life to play out the Chalice. Swords to Plowshares off the top is good. However, a Vial off the top is great. Oh, yeah. So now if my opponent draws that land for that Recruiter, they're pretty close to dead. So I can just Thought Knot this turn, take the Recruiter or whatever best card my opponent has, force the Ballista to junk the Mimic, and then go for a Smasher kill the following turn. Instead of just like trying to go ham on the Smasher immediately. This is probably better, but it's close. So we want to place the Thought Knot trigger on the stack first, so that the Mimic becomes big now, so that if my opponent wants to use Ballista, they have to use it right now. Yeah. Yeah, I'm using that ability. A bunch of wisps. So the recruiter can potentially get Palace Jailer, which is something I care about. The Revoker soaks up a little bit of damage, but I don't think it's super, super relevant. The other thing I can do is a little riskier, but I could just take the Revoker, then Wasteland my opponent, and try to attack in a few times and just kill them before they get back to 3 lands. I don't hate it, but then I don't get to play either of the other cards that are in my hand, so that might be short-sighted. I will just take the Recruiter. So now my opponent is probably going to have to play the Revoker as a chump blocker. And then I'm going to crash in for 13 damage. They'll have to take some unfavorable blocks, and that should mop things up. Since I'm Eldrazi aggro, I don't like that name. I think naming Jitte or Endringer or Ballista is better. The Thought-Knots keep a rolling, but this is Smasher time now. He's been a very patient little tentacle-y boy, and now it's his turn to come out to play. Yeah, I think my opponent has to just take one. No, I don't know what gets them out of this, honestly. They would need, like, another Batterskull. So I think I played against D&T in a previous round on camera, and I found my sideboarding to be awkward. So I have some things that are fine to bring in, but, like, Chalice of the Void is kind of awkward because it can be very good or very bad. Similarly, like, Matter Reshaper is kind of eh. I think definitely on the draw, I'm not going to want that. My Matter Reshapers and Endless ones are kind of whatever. Maybe it's supposed to be the Endless ones. I think last time I tried Matter Reshaper, I'm not really happy with Matter Reshaper or Endless one. But it's not really like any of these are much better. Tumble Magnet is for the big creatures. It's for your Tarmogoyfs, your Knight of the Reliquaries, things that you just can't rumble with in combat. You have a Vial. I have a Ratchet Bomb for that. Which, honestly, I'll probably play out on turn 1. So the hope here is that my opponent, like, just doesn't wasteland me. Like, that they play a Stoneforge would kind of be ideal for me. This is now an interesting turn, because I can either just kill the Revoker and kill the Vial, or I can play Thought Monster, both of which are strong plays. My opponent gains a mana advantage if I don't take care of the Revoker this turn. Is my opponent stuck on land? No. Why are you in the deck? That would be one of the first creatures that I removed. Ooh. I need to take the Palace Jailer. That card's way too good. So everything else here isn't immediately threatening. But it's not like my hand is top tier. I think I'll be playing out my Wasteland here. It stops some of the Flicker Wisp shenanigans. That is unfortunate for me. They have the Batterskull in hand already, so they can just dump it in. Thought not. A Reality Smasher would be kind of cool. Ratchet Bomb would be not great because Prelate's on board. It's not in Eldrazi. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Next turn 5, 6. So we're still a little ways away from activating this and getting a Ballista. Although that may be what this game comes down to. We are now very, very disadvantaged. What are you doing? That's interesting to me. Like, that could have been a Batterskull attack. Yep. Playing this? I guess I am, because spiking another land can then mean that I can activate the Eye of Ugin. So my opponent could trade Germ for this Mimic, which I would be totally fine with. Assuming my opponent doesn't find a source of Plowshares, this Endbringer is going to eat the rest of this game alive. So, for the low cost of 4 mana, I will be able to prevent target creature, or I guess 2 mana, over the course of 2 turns. I can just prevent something from attacking or blocking. Opponent chooses not to attack. Oh god, that's so gross. So I can just dismember this Germ, crash in for 11. Yep, that is happening. I guess off of this. That Flicker Wisp over there will be looking real good for my opponent, I will say that. So now my Endbringer gets to untap, so I can use it to either ping my opponent or draw a card. And my opponent has conceded there. Alright, so we ended up with an unimpressive 3-2. What did I learn this league? I feel like my last 2 matches were more successful than my first 3. And that might have been because I got a little more aggressive. Like, I think I won multiple mulls to 5 in these 2 videos that I just recorded. So maybe if you're playing Eldrazi, maybe mulligan a touch more aggressively than you did in the past. Just because there's so many sequences that involve early, like, Mimics or Chalices into Thought-Knots and Reality Smashers that are really strong. That was the first game that Endbringer really took over. Or at least had the potential to take over. Although I do think that my opponent could have wiggled a little bit differently and given themselves a few more outs there. As far as the stuff in the sideboard go, never once did I think to myself, boy, I want a Warping Whale here. So totally fine with splitting the Thorns and the Spatial Contortions. We played against a decent number of fair decks this league, so it's not like I brought in the Thorns every time. But if we would have gotten paired against, like, Breach, TES, Amp, something like that, Show and Tell, I would have very much appreciated them. Shadowspear, as one of, didn't really do anything this league, although conceptually I don't hate it, and it's probably close to Basilisk Collar in terms of its utility. Again, the Hexproof Indestructible part of it, not particularly relevant, but Trample on some of these guys, the Endbringers, the Endless Ones, things like that, might be pretty valuable. Folks, I hope you enjoyed, and this is the first of many backlog videos that I will be recording. Again, these are going to go live anytime that I can't stream for some reason. Cheers. Have a great rest of the day. Keep playing Legacy. It's awesome.